This episode is brought to you by Anytime Fitness. We may talk a whole lot about sports, but when it comes to keeping fit ourselves, there's definitely room for improvement. I hit this point early July. I was just like, I am not in good enough shape. I started trying to walk at least 15,000 steps a day or hiking or just anything to keep my legs moving. Now it's the end of 2023. I feel great. I had a physical 3 weeks ago, and the guy was like, "You're doing great. You're doing better than you were 3 years ago." I felt great. Whatever your goals are, progress is possible thanks to Anytime Fitness. Get a personalized plan and support from an expert coach anytime, anywhere. Visit anytimefitness.com to try Anytime Fitness for free. Start to train for your life. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. See website for details. This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian software like Jira, Confluence, and Trello help power global collaboration for all teams so they can accomplish everything that's impossible alone. Because individually we're great, but together we're so much better. Learn how to unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.com. Atlassian. Tap the banner or visit this episode's page to learn more.
Welcome to Through the Ringer. I'm your host, Tate Frazier, and it is Tuesday morning, and I am joined by cousin Sal. Sal, we just watched Monday Night Football. How you feeling?
Well, we just watched Monday Night Football. It's Tuesday morning.
Yeah, we're very confused.
We're all over the place.
Our timelines are a little up in the air.
It's great to be back. But we got a double dose last night, right? And we're going to get it again this week.
It's going to be great. We got some good football. I wouldn't say great football, but we got some good football. We got some good storylines.
They knew to bury that Saints Carolina game.
They got that one out of the way early, and we luckily, got a push. We'll talk about that.
Right.
But first and foremost, the big news of the day, obviously not good news, devastating news for Cleveland Browns fans. Nick Chubb goes down in this game. Probably some more updates will come out as far as the extent of the injury, but just seeing that moment and the impact of that moment for the Browns, I mean, that's a really tough loss.
No one wants to see that, and in fact, they didn't even show it a second time on TV because it was so gruesome. But and also, I don't want to make this about me, but I did bet him to have the most touchdowns rushing this year. So he should have just told his agent, hey, I want to sit this year out. Cousin Sal's backing me. That's that.
I think it's the Monday Night Football curse. It's not on you. I'm going to put it on Monday Night Football because good things are not happening on Monday Night Football. Obviously, we saw Rodgers last week. Shaq Thompson for the Panthers also goes down. Mm-hmm. Minka Fitzpatrick goes down. So there was just a lot of
Darius Smith for Cleveland.
A lot of injuries. Unfortunately, that's what we have to talk about here. But on the flip side of the injuries, on the good side, if you want to talk about the football part of it, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, they look like the Iron Curtain from back in the day, and they looked really, really good.
Steel Curtain.
Oh yeah,
Steel
right.
Curtain.
Not that we learned this, by the way.
I learned. You apparently didn't learn it.
I didn't learn anything. I'm still frazzled by this game. But your thoughts on that Steelers defense and their ability to get a big win against the Browns?
They're excellent. They create pressure and they get the ball, and their heads on every heads on the ball every single time. And Deshaun Watson was sort of a turnover machine today, and he was also a face mask grabbing machine.
Right, two penalties,
two weird machines. Yeah, so 2 15-yard penalties, moved back, and I think they had 6 sacks and the scoop and score. I was actually proud of the Browns. I'm like, you know what, this is a pretty good when they're winning with 7.5 minutes left. I said, how many teams could overcome this? Right, a pick six right off the bat. Right, we saw to start the game. Then their best offensive player goes out. They're in a hostile territory there. They had lost 19 straight road games in Pittsburgh, regular season, that is. I know they won a playoff game there. And they're winning, and then it's like, oh, yeah, all right, Deshaun just turned it over, and now it's the Steelers. If we go through the stats, it's hideous that they actually lost this game.
Yeah, and Highsmith, like you said, gets that pick six early in the game, also forces a fumble.
Yeah.
T.J. Watt, scoops and scores, gets the touchdown. Also, T.J. Watt sets the Steelers franchise record in sacks. I thought that was pretty notable. Can't even believe that's true at this point. The guy's only 28 years old. So, in general, if you're Mike Tomlin, if you're a Steelers fan, do you feel good? I know week 1 was really sour, but do you feel better about this team moving forward?
I don't think so. I think this was like a must-win for the Steelers. And if you look at the numbers, 455 yards to 288. Did I get that right?
Wow.
Something there. So they were on the short side of that. Not good for the Steelers. I don't know. And Pickett, 15 for 30, 222, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Worse yet, 4 rushes for -6. You know, that guy's got to be in the 30, 40, 50-yard rushing range for them to compete. They were lucky the defense scored twice.
Yeah, 14 points for the defense. And Pickens had the biggest play in this game on the offensive side of the football. So that was good if you're a fan of George Pickens, especially if you're a fantasy football fan. Let's look at the futures here for the AFC North, because I think this is fascinating. Right now, if you go to your FanDuel app or if you go to FanDuel.com, the AFC North winner, if we're going to track the futures here, Baltimore Ravens are the favorites at -110, the Browns at +360, Bengals +440, and the Steelers on the back end at +500. How do you feel about those odds? Do you think you got to go with the Ravens? That's the safe pick.
I think it's fair. I mean, there's so many injuries. Even the Ravens sustained an injury with Dobbins, but they clearly look like the best team, and it's because of Lamar Jackson, how he took over that game against the Bengals, and just their rushing attack. What did they have, 178 yards rushing? Obviously, they do that every game. They're going to be in the catbird seat for this division. So -110 is fair. The Browns, who I bet to win this division at a little more than 3-1, are now +360 with the Chubb injury, even though Jerome Ford looked serviceable.
Looked good, yeah.
Looked like a good replacement. The Steelers, I think, should be higher than 5-1. I know you can't make it too much higher because they're 1-1, and the Bengals we'll talk about, but I don't know what to think about Joe Burrow. If you look at that line looking ahead, well, we'll discuss them in 0-2 playoff teams.
Yeah, we'll get there. I will say, if you're a fan of Kenny Pickett, you're probably a little worried right now about what's going on with him and about the faith of the fan base in general. There was a lot of groans and a lot of frustrated faces.
You want your boy Trubisky in there.
Yeah.
I saw it in your eyes.
Yeah, I saw him on the sideline. Deshaun Watson came over there trying to grab his face mask.
He did?
It was pretty close.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. No one's off limits. It's amazing.
It's tough. Let's talk about the early game. This game was a little bit of a snooze fest. It was in Charlotte. Panthers fans came out. They were excited to see Bryce Young.
Your Aunt Reba was at the game.
My Aunt Reba, my cousin Matt. We got family at the game.
Does everyone in South Carolina have an Aunt Reba, or North Carolina?
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
You can find one, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And she might be working 2 jobs, you
Oh,
know,
wow.
to support the family. Plays a little theme
I don't know
song.
what that
Shout out to
means.
Reba
All right, I'll take your word on
McIntyre.
it.
Reba McIntyre.
I
Great.
see,
Yeah,
I
there you
see. I
go. Well, let's look at the NFC South in general, right? So we have this game. Saints hold on. There's a push. Bryce Young is able to get a push, so that was good. Your thoughts on Bryce Young? How does he look in his first couple games?
I don't know. He looks. It's a little tentative with Bryce Young. The play of the game.
Did you
was
have
that-
to say
that
little?
big- I don't know. Yeah, no, big, very tall, big hands. But no, actually, that hand swatted down that terrible snap, and he ran for 25 yards. That was the most impressive play of the game, I thought, offensively for Carolina. And then they score and they get the 2-point conversion. That's what's important for everyone holding a Saints -3 ticket that thought they were going to cash. Not so fast. That's a push.
We love a push, and especially if you're a Panthers fan. So that was good to see. 20-17, the final. I got the futures here. We're going to track the futures in the NFC South. According to FanDuel, the Saints are the favorites at +125. We got the Falcons at +150, Buccaneers at +420. All those teams undefeated so far. Pretty shocking when you think about the NFC South.
Not shocking. I've been saying for years the NFC South is the best division, the strongest division.
Once upon a time, they actually had that, but not quite these days. And then the Panthers +2,100 at this point. Who do you like in the NFC South?
They had to get rid of Breeze. They had to get rid of Matt Ryan. They had to get rid of Tom Brady. And now all those teams are 2-0.
Right.
I'm sticking with the Saints. I like what I saw. You know, Carr's going to make some mistakes here and there. I thought that defense was very good tonight, albeit against maybe one of what's going to be the lowest scoring teams in the league in Carolina. But you know, Thomas, 7 receptions. Olave, we know, is good, 6 for 86. But for Thomas to come back with 7 receptions is nice. And the Taysom Hill, the Swiss Army knife, 9 for 75 on the ground. So if they could figure that out, they don't have to score 30, 35 points a game to win this division. So I'm going to stick with the Saints. I'm not as high on the Falcons as everyone else.
And Derek Carr, 2-0, you know, goes and finds a new home. He looks very happy to be there. It looks like he's almost become part Louisiana at this point. It looks like he grew up in Louisiana. So Derek Carr is very happy, man. There's a lot of Saints fans that are very happy about this team so far. Falcons at +150. They have a star running back who's a rookie, Bijan Robinson. I wanted to look at some of the offensive rookie of the year props here because I find these fascinating as well. Sal, he is the favorite right now, Bijan Robinson at +190. We have Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson at +360, and we have the darling of Los Angeles right now, if you're a Rams fan, Puka Nacua at +650.
I told you, first, one of the 2 things I said to you, the NFC South is going to have 3 teams at 2-0 and Puka Nacua. is going to be third in line.
You told me that. When I called you at the start of the season, you said these are the things you need to know. Puka Nakua. And I just kept saying that back and forth. I think if you say it 3 times, Beetlejuice pops out.
I think that's
what are your thoughts on the Rookie of the Year race? Is it sewn up at this point?
No, I don't think, especially with the way these running backs are going down. By the way, there's like 4 running backs that have already gone down. Barkley, I'll count, as a half, but right? You had Dobbins, you had obviously Chubb. Who am I missing? There was someone last week that went down. But anyway, there's 3 gone. Oh, Montgomery's out now.
Yeah, right.
So I'm sticking with Stroud. I had him at 10-1. Is he 12 or 15 right now? I think he's
plus 1,500 right now.
Overlooked a little. If he makes it to the finish line, he's going to have pretty good stats. I don't know what that team's record will be, but he has over 620 yards passing at 384 yesterday. So give me C.J. Stroud at a big number.
Yeah, and the Texans have looked better under Stroud. You got Bryce Young, the number 1 pick at plus 2,200. I don't think he's going to be the guy at this point. Anthony Richardson, if he can stay healthy and stay on the field, right, at plus 360, there's probably some value there. It feels like America at large, they like Anthony Richardson. They're impressed by the physical feats. And from what we've seen, right, the draftniks, they're all, they're patting themselves on the back right now. And they're saying, we got this guy right. So maybe Anthony Richardson's a play if he can stay healthy.
He gets rushing touchdowns.
Right.
And that's, everyone loves the highlights. But I feel like, in terms of buzz, Bijan Robinson, you're right. If he could stay healthy, people are dying to vote him in as Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Also, number 7 is a great, strong number for a running back. So if there's anything about like kind of the cool factor of it all, I do think Bijan Robinson has that going. And he also has a coach who is trying to win Coach of the Year. He's the second best odds to win Coach of the Year. Quickly on that, when you look at the Coach of the Year odds, is there a coach right now, with these rookies? You know what I mean? A lot of times when you have a young guy, you can kind of make is Arthur Smith a guy that we really can lean in on?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like we could talk about this later.
Oh, let's talk about this later. You know what I mean? Let's leave this for later. Let's talk about tanking. Yeah. Because tanking is always a conversation because we talk about the rookies, right? Yeah. Everyone's trying to find that one player that can change their franchise. The Cardinals seem to be the number 1 team that's trying to do that. Kyler Murray obviously not playing right now. And then also you have a situation where they're up big against the Giants. They go into halftime. They come out in the second half. And all of a sudden they say, Danny Dimes, this is your time. Are the Cardinals number 1 on the big board for tanking for Caleb Williams right now?
I don't think. Are they? Is that tanking? I mean, there are less obvious ways to tank than be like, oh my God, we're up 28. No, we got to do something here, right? Like that.
A lot of people making the joke that the owners came in and said, this is not what we want.
That's it. I don't know. But, on the other side, how many times have you tanked for a player, a Josh Rosen, that doesn't pan out? And we're going to talk about Caleb Williams, like, is he going to be available even, right?
Right.
Like his father said, take it easy here, Cardinals, if you are tanking, because he might play another year. We might stay in the league. We might stay in college until the 49ers get the number 1 pick. We like the cut of their jib. So we'll wait around. And
Caleb Williams seems to like L.A., obviously came from Oklahoma, transferred into the program with Lincoln Riley, kind of a big star here in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a great market to be in. Right. You're making millions of dollars to be a college quarterback at USC. Seems like a pretty good gig. So do you think there's another team? All right, so we know the Cardinals are probably in the tank race, but the Bears are a team. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But is there another team that you think may be trying to tank for Caleb?
By the way, Kenny Pickett was playing on Monday night. It might be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't, before the year started, I would have said Rams for the same reasoning, right? L.A., now he's an L.A. kid, Caleb Williams, but Sean McVay just refuses to lose. He won't do it. He won't do it. He won't tank. I don't know if he was been instructed to tank or what, but they play for that guy. And so the Rams, but I don't really see any others. There might be a few teams that are around 3 or 4 wins, and Arizona's probably going to be happy. Their over-under is 3.5 right now.
And the good news, if you're a Cardinals fan, is that this is such a good class. Let's say Caleb Williams does, say he has unfinished business and wants to come back to USC to play one more year. You still could get Michael Penix. You could still get Drake May. This is a really good quarter. Even Quinn Ewers, right, at Texas. There's options at the quarterback position where you can kind of convince yourself that, hey, it might be worth it this year to just take a dive.
4.5 Pac-12 quarterbacks will be drafted, right?
right. Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, Deion's going to send his son off.
Could be in that conversation. So that is a big conversation. I'm excited to see what it feels like every week when a team plays poorly, everyone wants to go ahead and tell them to tank. I don't know what that is.
Listen, this isn't. I'm looking at that basketball over your shoulder. I still don't know why it's there, but this is not the NBA where you could just send players out. Well, these guys don't play anyway, so you can't even tell if they're tanking or not. No. We saw Lovie Smith, what he did. There's really no tanking.
I respect that Lovie Smith was like, one for me.
I love that.
Yeah, one for you guys, one for me.
Exactly.
Lovie Smith, congratulations. You made it happen. One last thing before we go to break, Sal. I want to ask you this. We got a lot of 0-2 teams right now. There are a lot of teams that are kind of surprisingly 0-2 at this point. So I want to ask you, which 0-2 team has the best chance to make the playoffs? We got Cincinnati, we got the Los Angeles Chargers, we got the Denver Broncos, and we got the New England Patriots, who our boss Bill Simmons said that they would be the best out of this group to make the playoffs. But who do you say?
He is our boss, but he's very, very wrong about that. He doesn't even like them to beat the Jets this week.
No,
so
he believes. He believes. He's a Mac guy.
I don't think it's the Patriots. I did have Denver at 9-8 before the season. I don't know. They could be 2-0. I don't know. They lost in spectacular fashion. Now they have to go to Miami. So I might be off of that. You know, the Bengals, it really is about Joe Burrow. And I thought he might be healthy, but, you know, they have the line FanDuel at 2.5 over the Rams at home, which tend to lean towards that he's not starting this week. So that's huge. And I don't love the Chargers in that spot either. We're going to talk about Coach of the Year and coaches that could maybe be fired later on. I think that's a good candidate right there in Staley. So I'm gonna have faith in the Bengals after seeing how the Steelers played and after seeing how the Browns might be decimated by injuries. Maybe they leap up a little bit in that division.
I like it. And I could try to talk myself into Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, but I just feel like there's something off there. I don't know what it is, but you could take them right now and you could get the odds at plus 450. So if you believe in Denver and think that you can spin it around and they could get the season on the right track, two veteran coach and player there you can believe in. So I like that as well. But a lot of 0-2 teams right now. Sal, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to keep this thing rolling.
All right, I'm going to drink this water.
Please. All right, welcome back into Through the Ringer. We just talked about the Monday Night Football games, but we are here to play one of my favorite games with you, Cousin Sal. We like to do over-under reactions. I give you grandiose statements, and you tell me if it's an overreaction or an underreaction. Are you ready for this?
I'll try it, but if I don't like games, I might just walk out halfway
Okay,
through.
well, you can always leave. You always have the option. You can get up and leave, and then I'll just talk to myself, and we'll see how that goes. Yeah, that'll be fun. Maybe I end up talking about basketball. We'll see. Here's my first statement for you, and you can give me over or under reaction. Micah Parsons, Dallas Cowboys superstar, is the best player in the NFL. Cousin Sal, what about that? Over or under reaction?
It's hard to say that that's an underreaction. How would it be an underreaction? Like, no, not just the NFL, all the FLs, USFL,
any league,
the CFL.
anyone that's playing football, he's a world champ.
Anytime you ever saw football on a field, he was the best.
Yes.
Well, now it's gotten out of hand, right? Like, I'm not going to say I discovered this, the Micah Parsons greatness, but he was plus 450 to win Defensive Player of the Year. Now he's like, it's almost half that.
Yeah.
People are comparing him to LT. And if I say anything like that, they're like, you're a jerk. You got Bosa in the league. What about everything that Aaron Donald did? But I just love the way he plays. I love how he glides to the quarterback. It's so seamless the way he's doing it. And can I just have fun watching him? I do think he's the best right now.
I do think he's the best too. And if you look at the MVP odds, obviously quarterbacks are pretty much the favorites to win MVP at this point. But he's plus 6,000 to be the MVP. And I think there's value there. That's what we like to say in the business.
And especially in this business, we like to say that. Dak is 16-1. So just on his team, he's not even considered the MVP, which I think is off.
Who's watching the games, if that is the case? I don't know. We'll figure that out later.
You're right. You know what? You were right. This is a very fun game. Okay, let's keep it going.
Yeah, let's have fun. All right, number 2. This is not fun for Chicago Bears fans. Maybe they go earmuffs here, but the Bears still need a franchise quarterback. Overreaction or underreaction?
I don't think it's an overreaction. So what was my other option? Underreaction?
Right.
I feel like, and I like Justin Fields. I had him on fantasy teams, but you quickly learn that there's a difference, right? He racks up the fantasy points, but he doesn't still seem comfortable back there. The timing seems way off. It doesn't really matter what receiver you put out there. You know, they did some nice things.
They got him at number 1. They got him DJ Moore. He looked better in week 2, but still.
Just getting gobbled up sack-wise, and it's not good. And, it's also not good that C.J. Stroud, if you want to go Ohio State versus Ohio State, already has more 300-yard passing games in his career.
That's not good.
Fields. I think they regret not unloading him in March when they had the chance.
Yeah, 5-22 as a starter for the Chicago Bears. That is not what they're looking for, but we've seen quarterbacks struggle there before. My guy, Mitchell Trubisky, even Nick Foles coming off a Super Bowl, he goes there. He can't save the day. So the Chicago Bears have a quarterback problem dating back to George Blanda. Yeah. So it's been a problem.
The joint is haunted, I tell you.
Something's going on for the Bears. All right, next up, we got Arthur Smith is the coach of the year. Overreaction, underreaction, Atlanta Falcons coach.
Yeah, I know who he is, Tate.
Well, I some of our audience doesn't.
I think it's an overreaction.
They're wondering where the basketball show is.
A little bit of an overreaction. I don't think they've won any games that they weren't supposed to, right? It was a coin flip game spread-wise against the Packers. Last week they beat up on the Panthers. So they're 2-0. I don't know if you give them Coach of the Year. I know he's high up there going in. I like McVay, even though he's 1-1. I am so impressed with how tough this team is. You know, they let it go. They played 3 good quarters against the 49ers and then blew it. And then the week before, beating Seattle, they get to 7 wins somehow, 8 wins. I think it's them. But it's funny how you look at Todd Bowles, right? Or you look at, I'm trying to think of some other guys. Ron Rivera, your guy, right? Those guys were considered to be first coach fired, and now you could easily say, hey, maybe they're coach of the year.
Yeah, and we like when we get a new name, right? That's what everybody likes. We get voter fatigue, and people like to throw out a new name. So Arthur Smith is the guy this year so far. Ritter's look good. Bijan Robinson, obviously, we talked about him, Rookie of the Year earlier. Let's talk about another coach that people are fired up about, and that is Brandon Staley, coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Is he going to be the first coach fired?
Man, I did pick him to be first coach fired. Wow. And I just don't know what it is yet with him. Like, the old Chargers, their kicker was going to be terrible. They were going to suffer some stupid injury due to a doctor, malpractice. And then the coach was going to be like calling nutty plays. That Staley did, right? Taking risks when he shouldn't have, pass, but secondary trouble, taking risks. Now it's weird because Herbert, I'm pretty sure, doesn't have any turnovers.
No, he's been incredible.
Yeah.
It's been clean.
And they've lost 2 one-score games. The one thing Staley did do wrong, I mean, a couple things, but against the Titans, he had 4th and 2 from the Titans' 42, up 21-17. He kicked it. So I don't even know what his identity is anymore. But if he keeps losing one-score games in which the team is not turning the ball over, he will be the first coach fired.
And do you think there's a situation, Kellen Moore, obviously they brought over from Dallas. They wanted him to revamp this offense. The offense has looked good. Is there any world in which Kellen Moore just slides over? He goes from interim to the head coach. Could that happen?
Sure. I think that could happen for sure. I just don't know. I was looking at their schedule. I think it's going to take a while before they let him go. I don't think they're going to be 3-7 going into week 10, but that's what it's going to take.
Well, here's a little teaser. We'll talk about the line look-aheads. The Chargers game versus the Vikings.
Yeah.
Both teams trying to stave off being 0-3. Last over-under reaction for you. SoFi Stadium, considered one of the best stadiums. Obviously, Jerry Jones would not agree with that, but many think is the best stadium in the NFL, is the worst home field advantage in the NFL. The Niners took over the stadium against the Rams. Do you agree with that overreaction, underreaction?
Yeah, no, it's not an overreaction. It's terrible in there. And, they pipe in crazy noise in there.
They try.
Maybe it's because I'm an old man, but they're piping in like Indy 500 noise and revving up in cars and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then I thought, it's to drown out the opposing fans booing the home team or cheering for the road team, right? They actually you look this up, they had robots in there with Chargers jerseys. I think it was the only way to get people to wear Chargers jerseys in SoFi. But yeah, it is bad. It's I don't even think they let the players' wives get a discount at the concession stand. I don't know what kind of advantage.
I went to the Cowboys-Chargers game last year. I'm sitting in my seats, home game for the Chargers. I have a Chargers Keenan Allen jersey on, and as I walked down to my seats, I was paraded by boos. Thumbs down, like as if I was walking into Dallas Cowboy Stadium. You know what I mean?
I think that's just you.
I think that was too. That was a little bit of
what
both.
You were wearing, really. Yeah. No, they should just play the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl there once a year, and then otherwise tear the joint down.
That was a great game this year. Fresno State, Washington State,
Lots
great
of fun.
game. Yeah,
somehow won money off.
Yeah, that was fun. All right, let's talk about because yesterday we saw the big moment, right? Ian Eagle, he references blank space, Taylor Swift when Travis Kelce scores a touchdown, and that got our captain of the Riverboat Casino thinking, who would you want to call your touchdown? And we got some odds right now. Gus Johnson is minus 5,000. Al Michaels 4-1. Doris Burke 10-1. Joe Buck 15-1. Obviously calling Monday Night Football. And then the field field is 2-1. I look at you, Sal. Who would you want to call your touchdown?
Oh, man, there's so many great. I don't know how I could pass up Gus, right? And Gus is taking some crap for not being excited. The guy takes a break. He takes 20 minutes off, and everyone's like...
A game that, I think Penn State was minus 600 in this game.
Right, exactly.
So.
Illinois...
Give him a break.
Throwing 3-yard outs. What's he supposed to do? The guy can't win. He probably had mononucleosis and still showed up for the game. But it would probably be Gus. But I'm going to go off the board. I'm going to take the field and our very own Bill Simmons.
Wow.
Yeah. There's Chubby Sal running down the sideline. Look at that. He broke the ankles of the defender from the 10, the 5. Touchdown! Varsity Blues all over again. Get me a Blu-ray.
Man, that was a wonky call, but I liked it.
Yeah.
It was good.
You get used to it.
I think that's the right answer. 2-1. I also had off the board. I had Pepper Brooks and Cotton McKnight from Dodgeball. Gary
good.
Cole and Jason Bateman. I would like them to make the call for me. It's a bold strategy to score a touchdown. You know what I mean? Those two guys on the call, that would be fun. But I think the Riverboat captain would be happy with and suffice it with those answers. And
He's
also,
never happy. He really is like a bitter old man, but whatever we can do.
Yeah, we're trying our best out here, but I think that's good. And Gus Johnson, no matter what he does, even if it's muted, it's still fun. You know what I mean? So even if Gus Johnson is mad at you and you hire him to make a touchdown call, I mean, that would be great. Maybe even like a real life call when you have a kid or something. He's there in the delivery room and he's doing the whole play-by-play. That'd be amazing.
I like that. Or at least just gender reveals, right? That would be a great way to kick things off.
Yeah, that'd be good. Gus Johnson on the call. That's how you know you spend a lot of money. So that's good stuff there. And he's a network guy. Gus Johnson, call an NBA game, right? I mean, come on. That's what we need him to do. Last segment before we let you go, Sal. Line look-aheads. We finally figured out the name in week 3. We did it. So let's start with the first line that we're going to look ahead this week. We got the Philadelphia Eagles traveling down to Tampa Bay to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are getting 5.5 points in this game. Baker Mayfield, 2-0. How do you feel about this one, 5.5 points?
Well, I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, right, on this. And the Eagles will having played last Thursday, they're going to have some extra time. This could be a weird game. It could be like 110 degrees on the field kind of thing in Tampa. We saw something similar in Jacksonville. And that would make me think then Philadelphia might have trouble scoring. You might see like a 13-10 type game. But I know we said some nice things about Todd Bowles a few minutes ago. But I think this is where it ends. I think it's like a 24-7 type final.
And Baker Mayfield, I mean, great run in this 2-game streak. And the Eagles, they seem to find a way to win ugly. So that's
I want to see this defense. Everyone's talking about the Bucs defense, and it's been good. But can they survive the push play? Can they survive the mosh pit? That is everybody jumping behind Jalen Hurts and pushing him forward.
Let's see. I can't wait. Week 3, we're going to find out. All right, next game we have the Los Angeles Chargers, 0-2, going up against the 0-2 Vikings. Vikings, 1.5 points. They are favored in this game at home in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins has been great. Justin Herbert's been great. Everything else has been bad. Who do you like in this game, Sal?
Flipped from Sunday night when Simmons and I were doing the lines. The Chargers were favored by 1.5, and I have a deal with myself. Don't ever take the Chargers when they're favored, but the Vikings have been struggling too. Right, so I still think the Vikings to win that NFC North. I'm going to stick with them. Yeah, you're right. Neither one of these teams wants to go to 0-3, but you just can't trust them. It's kind of the same thing, and they lose one-score games. I would take a teaser with both teams in it, which is unorthodox for sure. But I'm leaning towards the Vikings in this game.
And honestly, if they do not win this game, the Minnesota Vikings, good luck with the New York Post articles that are saying Kirk Cousins should come to New York.
Oh, right.
The Jets are going to try to get this man. So for their sake, hopefully they can win this game. And then I even saw Pats fans tweeting about trading for Justin Jefferson. I mean,
are they already sellers? My God, we're 11 days into the season.
Trying to tear down Minnesota. And Minnesota, they need some good fortune. So hopefully they get a win there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Again, favored by 1.5 in this game. All right, next game, Sal. We got the Denver Broncos, Russell Wilson, Sean Payton. They look good when they're running scripted plays. But after that, it is not good. And they are going to Miami. The Dolphins have 6.5 points. They're favored in this game. What do you see in this one? Do you think Denver can finally get a win?
I got so lucky on that Hail Mary, Tate. I had an adjusted line with Denver, and
Russ
doesn't even reach the end zone. He's off by like 7 yards and just gets batted back. I think this is a tough spot for the Dolphins. They're coming off a short week. The line is a little bit suspicious. Everybody is down on Denver. When are they going to yank Russ? What's Peyton going to do? And everybody's so up. Miami, Tua is favored to win MVP at this point.
Plus 500.
Why is this not 7? I think why? Because it's suspicious, right? That it's 6.5. I think this is a sneaky spot for Denver, and I would take the points. I don't see Miami getting too up for this. And like I said, short week. might be a closer game than people think.
And Denver should have won both games that they were in so far. So, I mean, if you're watching the Broncos, you're just like, how can they figure out this second half collapse they have going on? The scripted plays are great at the start. Sean Payton is a real coach. So I think they're going to figure it out. I like Denver in this game as well. All right, next up, we got Colts traveling to Baltimore. Baltimore, 8.5 points. They are favored at home against the Indianapolis Colts. We got a concussion with Anthony Richardson, so that's a question mark a little bit there. Who do you like in this game, and do you think Lamar can cover?
Richardson was really he was on pace to putting together stats that really qualify him for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Right.
It's a shame he had 2 rushing touchdowns, and then the concussion is going to slow him down. As far as the odds makers and FanDuel go, I'm not sure if there's a difference in their eyes between Minshew and Richardson. This is 8.5. I think it would be about 8.5 if Richardson were starting. But as it is now, same sort of situation as Miami, New England. Baltimore was in a slugfest with Cincinnati, division rival. Might be tough for them to get up for this game, so might be a little closer than people think.
Yeah, I like that. Last game, Sal, as we look ahead, we got the Buffalo Bills who, they got everything righted in week 2. Now they're going to play the Commanders in Washington. Commanders getting 6.5 points in this game. 2-0. Sam Howell looks good so far, and the defense looked incredible. How do you feel about this one? You think the Commanders can cover?
Simmons and I were way off on this. I think we were around 4.5. I think this is going to go even higher because FanDuel doesn't care about what idiots like me say about Josh Allen and the turnovers and everything else. And I know you love Ron Rivera and all they do, but they have to protect themselves and make this 6.5. I think this goes higher to 7, and I think the Bills are back on track.
I like it. There you have it. That's the last pick right there for you, Sal. Appreciate you coming on the show. On Friday, check out Cousin Sal's winning weekend. And then obviously on Sunday, check out the Ringer Wise Guys with the great Cousin Sal. Sal, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, you don't have to, we're going to do this every week. You don't have to thank me for coming on the show.
Well, I'm fired up. We'll see what happens.
I love you, buddy.
Thanks, man.
There you go.
All right, welcome back to Through the Ringer, and joining us now, he is a recurring guest in the world of Through the Ringer. He is the Press Box's very own Bryan Curtis. Bryan, it's great to see you.
I've just been in the green room for weeks.
You've just been waiting.
Actually, thanks for waving me on.
You're just like, it's time. We got to talk about Monday Night Football. We got to talk about this dream broadcast duo, and I'll start there because you wrote a great piece on, of course, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, talking about their 22 years together. They pass Pat Summerall, John Madden. Isn't that insane to say? So let's just talk about that. The fact that they've been together for 22 years, how hard is it to kind of wrap our minds around that?
It's incredibly hard. I mean, I was doing this piece and I'm like, oh my gosh, they called games before the beginning of the Second Iraq War. Friends was still on television when Joe and Troy started calling games together. That's unbelievable. And, growing up when I did, Pat and John,
They were the standard.
They were not only the standard, they were the standard just being together.
Yeah.
They were a thing. And the fact that these guys have been on a thing longer than them now, that just blows my mind.
And when it first started, right? I mean, there were question marks. Joe Buck's 33 years old,
Yeah.
kind of the up-and-comer son. Everyone knew his dad. They didn't really know him. Troy Aikman's 1 year out of playing and being the quarterback for the Cowboys, right? He's 35 years old, and everyone's saying, what is this new guard? These guys are going to ruffle feathers, and now they are the standard in the NFL. What was it like to be around them now as they reflected back on the start of it all?
Well, it's always funny to talk to two people like that together. Get them in.
That's the fascinating part of the
same
piece.
room.
It was like you had a quote and you would tell them the quote. It was kind of like the Jordan iPad moment. And Troy's like, he really said that? You know what I mean? It's like you were bringing him closer.
It was really funny. Yeah, there was this great moment where Joe was talking about how sad he was that he was not in Canton, Ohio for Troy's Pro Football Hall of Fame induction. He's like,
wow.
I had to call a baseball game in Los Angeles, and I'm sitting in my hotel room watching this on TV, and I'm emotional, and Troy just looks at me and goes, BS. No, I really was emotional. He's like, you're playing golf at Bel Air. What are you talking about saying you're emotional? It was so funny just to see him because they're the kind of rare announcer duo that are actually friends off the air. Not just TV friends and not just work friends, but actual friends. Like they've traveled together, they've done stuff like that. So to see people interact and to talk about their friendship, which is both fun for them and also a little weird for them, because how often do you sit with your friend and just talk about how we became friends and what we are like together? I don't know. It was just fascinating for me.
Yeah, and a lot of times with these duos, like we've seen throughout the years, right? People get sick of each other. People move on. Mike and Mike was probably the most recent example in the sports world where it's like, I thought you guys were best friends, and then all the tea comes out, right? And people read between the lines. But like you said, one of the funniest anecdotes of your piece, which you can read on theringer.com, is they ironically enough said they came closer when they had divorces. Like divorce helped bring these guys closer together. I've never heard that in my life. A separation can bring another party closer. Have you ever heard that before? Like that was wild.
I mean, just think about it. Like, who do you become adult friends with?
Yeah.
People that you didn't go to school with or didn't know when you were really young, right? It's got to be something that's going to get you to hang out outside of work. And
a trauma bond.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I think that's literally what this was. And travel around, we're in our, we're in our 40s, right? We're divorced. We got this different part of our life, and that's what happened here. And it's different than, let us say, like Al and John Madden or Pat and John.
Right.
We didn't hang out off the air at all. I mean, they really didn't. They were great.
They took their headsets off and they walked their separate ways.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And I love you. I respect you. And I'm gone, right? I'm going somewhere different than you are tonight.
One of the other nuggets that I loved in this piece, and I don't want to, take away from the allure of reading it, obviously, but you talked about this. They talked about the Super Bowl in 2011, and Joe Buck kind of had made this comment like, "What if we screw up?" Right? And then Troy kind of looked at him and was like, "We're not gonna. What are you talking about?" You know what I mean? And it kind of showed like another level of Joe Buck's own criticism of someone that obviously grew up in calling games and knows the history and things like that. How interesting is it to think about 2011? We're wondering if they could even call a Super Bowl, and now they are, like I said before, the standard in the sport.
Totally. And you know this, behind the scenes, when you work with somebody like that, there are all these moments of doubt.
Yeah, of course.
Pride, because what happens is Troy's like, "Hey, man, we're not going to screw this up. We never screwed up." And Joe looks at him, "Let me tell you something. I'm not going to have my worst day on Super Bowl Sunday." Okay?
He like flips it on him like he said it. Yeah.
And again, if we just watch people on the air, you never see that. You never see that moment of vulnerability where you can turn to somebody and just be like, "Hey, dude, I'm having this little moment here."
Yeah.
And the other person's like, "Oh, snap out of it. Okay, I'm out. Let's go.
Right.
Let's go crush this
right.
thing."
It's very familiar to the sport that they're covering, honestly.
Oh,
right?
Totally. I mean, that's kind of like a locker room conversation, right? A little bit. We don't think of that as sports TV so much, but things like that are the way people actually, even in big jobs, they have moments like that. There's another moment I love where Joe used to worry about his Twitter account all the time.
Okay, yeah.
He just loved the mean tweets, got into his head a little bit. He was worried about it. And Troy, whenever they were done with the game, would put him in the front seat of a car, and Troy would sit in the back seat and just open up Twitter and just start reading the tweets. And Joe would be like, "Can you please stop reading that?"
I kind of love that.
Yeah. And Troy's like, "No, this one's actually kind of funny." And we just start reading
Jimmy Kimmel's
out.
mean tweets, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Via Troy Aikman. That's a great moment right
and
there.
And it just, loosened them up. "Hey, man, I was a quarterback of the Cowboys. I heard worse than this. These guys tweeting about our announcing, it's going to be okay."
Yeah. What would you say is kind of like their iconic moment as a duo, or a call or a game? Is it the Super Bowl? But is there something that they even pointed to and said this was our best game?
You know what's interesting about it? It was actually Thursday Night Football on Fox. And the reason was those games were actually terrible. They were not good football games. But I even remember this as a viewer. 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
I'd turn on TV and they'd come on and they'd have this big smile on their face when they're doing that little stand-up at the beginning. And it was almost like they were about to do a celebrity roast.
Right. It was almost like a wink wink, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were laughing at the fact that they're calling this game.
Totally. Because they had the big Sunday afternoon NFC Fox game. And you looked at it, it was like Browns, Jaguars. Oh, God. But what they told me is like that actually kind of unlocked a little bit of us because we didn't have to worry about it. It wasn't Cowboys,
low
49ers,
stakes, yeah.
Right? And the whole idea is we got to have a little fun tonight because if we just call this game like it's deadly serious, it's not going to work. And so Troy loosened up, I think, was willing to be a little funnier, follow Joe where he goes. Joe naturally is a guy who likes to cut up and be silly a little bit, and it worked. And now watching them on Monday Night Football, it's like they're the fun team. Like, I think they are the guys who are like, let's have, we're prime time, right? Let's have a little fun.
And there's kind of like a wink, wink. We came from Fox. Now we're with the enemy and we're having a good time. You know what I mean? It's like Jedi Knights going to the dark side. You know what I mean? They're just having fun over there. I wanted to ask you about Troy Aikman, kind of where he stands as a color guy all time. And I feel like Tony Romo, he came into the fold. Yeah. I think that helped Troy get to, like you said, the kind of that next level in his career. Also Collinsworth, they used to work together. He kind of stepped in for Collinsworth with Joe Buck. Where does he stand? Is he in that group? I mean, or is he and Collinsworth, are they kind of battling it out for all time?
These guys will never say it, of course, especially not on the record, but they're very competitive.
Oh, yeah.
With clippings, articles, with Emmys, sports Emmys, which nobody in the real world knows about, but
if you get a sports Emmy, you know about it.
They pay attention to it.
Right.
I mean, they really pay attention to it. And I'll tell you the thing I think that's really helped Troy is that announcing got really nice. Everybody's nice now. Look at that Zach Wilson. I mean, he's got some tools. You never know. And no, he doesn't. He doesn't have any. He doesn't have tools. No, he doesn't. Troy was very steady. And if you notice with Troy, he doesn't do a lot of false building up of people that he doesn't believe in. He doesn't just put a lot of, sugar into a broadcast. And I think it's made him sound more honest than a lot of announcers now because everybody's being so nice and so positive. And it's not like Troy crushes people all that much, but he's very steady. And it stands out in 2023. It's different.
And he says stuff like, Joe, you just can't make that decision there, right? And it's not like in
it's subtle.
Right. It's not in a mean way, but it's in a, almost direct way. Right.
It feels real. Somebody told me, I don't even think I used this in the piece, that bad football just kind of really makes him mad and makes him angry. He's just like, this stinks, man. This is not good. And there's a certain way that bothers him. Maybe that's a better way to put it. And he's just like, I'm not having this. I'm not going to pretend I'm watching something good right now if it's bad.
I want to talk about the alternate cast, right? We have the Manning cast on Monday Night Football, and Peyton Manning has shown, obviously, during this whole process, he does not like bad football, and he's not afraid to point it out. But I thought there was a real human moment when Aaron Rodgers goes down. The reaction from Eli and Peyton, who have both been quarterbacks, who have both been injured, who have both been in that position before, especially Eli being in New York. To see the human part of that, how fascinating was that from the coverage standpoint that we get two legit Hall of Fame quarterbacks reacting to another Hall of Fame quarterback going down?
And that's where the Manning cast is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Because you can have a moment like that. I think especially Peyton that last year with the Broncos where they somehow miraculously won a Super Bowl, even though his arm barely worked.
Brock Osweiler got him there, and then Peyton, did it in the end, right?
I know. And you just look like, I know what this is like, where I'm one of the all-time greats. I'm just trying to squeeze out a little bit more, just like Aaron Rodgers is, and now this happens to me. But I don't think that could really happen in a conventional TV broadcast in the same way. There's just too much to do, right? The play
he couldn't be standing there with Troy and Joe as the third guy in the booth like that. It wouldn't have the same kind of moment.
Well, and even Troy, if you watch Monday Night Football that night, Troy knows about that too. The concussions he had as a player, the way his Cowboys career ended. But again, you're just busy. You don't have time to just sit there and have
soak
that
in
kind
a
of
moment.
Reaction.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to me, and it's one thing that really tells you alternate telecast can give you something new.
And do you think because of those kind of moments, we'll see more of and obviously they're trying out with Monday Night Football. They got the ABC cast, they got the ESPN cast, but is there a world in which we have this alternate cast at all times, right? And we see it with the national championship game also. But is this the thing?
Perfect on
Thursday
right.
Night. What is this just the future? We have to accept it.
I think so, but what's really going to pop through? I mean, it's one thing to do it, but it's another thing. It's we have Peyton and Eli, who each could be number one announcers on their own.
Right.
If they just were on the market tomorrow, right, they would be number one guys.
Yeah, Eli could be at ESPN, Peyton could be at NBC, right?
They could totally do it and would be very, wanted. So I think the whole thing is can you do an alternate telecast? Sure. But is anybody going to watch it or really want to see that? Is it going to pop? Very few of them have, other than the Manning cast.
And that's kudos to them for having their own kind of spin on it, their own kind of personality. Eli's hilarious, right? I feel like I've actually gained, I've liked Eli more post New York Giants than I did when he was with the New York Giants, right? Which is saying something. That doesn't happen often.
And it's because of that telecast that it really comes through. Even if Eli were just calling a game with the play-by-play guy, if he was standing next to Al Michaels, would that sense of humor come out in the same way? if you're not just seeing him, because you kind of need to see his face.
Yeah, because he's
for
kind
that
of
to
always
work.
laughing and always trying to rib and always trying to mess with Peyton. He's got as a younger brother myself, I respect his younger brother energy. It's always good. I want to talk about something that's a little less fun, and that's Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
We want it to be good because we love Al Michaels. He is, in his own echelon when it comes to broadcasters. And he's there with Kirk Herbstreit, who is the voice of college football. And together on Thursday Night Football, year 2, it's insane to have 2 elite people that separately are so great, but together it feels like they just keep running off the rails. How do you feel about year 2? Is it getting better? Is there hope for the future? And when and how does this end?
I think the biggest hope for the future is the games just have to be better.
Right. It's been unfair to them as well, I should say.
I mean, that's the hardest part, right? I mean, unless you're going to do the Joe and Troy Thursday night thing, we're like, oh, wow, this sucks. Let's just go for it.
Yeah, let's just laugh at it.
Which I don't really see Al and Kirk really doing.
That's not how they're built, right?
Especially Kirk. I mean, you just think about it, like Saturday Night Football. I mean, that is almost always a great game.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost always, it's a Texas-Alabama type game.
Right.
And
Clemson, Florida State, whatever it is. Yeah.
You're not just like, oh, this is horrible, let's make fun of it. You really lock in. And so I think the biggest thing is their schedule. And I think last year was about like Russell Wilson was on there every week.
Right.
And we're watching these just horrible football games. So I guess Vikings-Eagles week 1 was better. And it was at least like an interesting matchup, a playoff team. So if that perks up, I just think the whole thing will perk up. And then maybe, and again, they did feel like they were really feeling each other out last year. Week 1, it still felt like
they didn't want to step on each other's toes. You know what I mean? Because they are both so good at what they do, but they also don't know each other. It feels like you got 2 great people and you got them in a room and they are just trying to just feel each other out. They're like, I don't know what you do well. I don't know what you want me to do. It's like a dance, but they're never getting on beat.
Yeah, and chemistry's weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it appears
Right.
instantly, and you're like, oh, these guys feel like they've known each other forever. And
Right.
sometimes it's like, oh, they're still going. We got to work on this.
Come
right?
on, yeah.
When do you talk? When do I talk?
Right.
And it makes me appreciate what Herbstreit and Fowler have on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a really fascinating telecast to me where they're almost both telling stories and they're just picking up right where the other one leaves off. It's like, oh, these guys have worked together since 1996 on game day. Like they know.
And it's hard too. Like Al Michaels going from Collinsworth, who had the same sort of rapport with him. When you have a rapport with someone, you go to a new partner. Sometimes it's not as fun to spar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm not having as much fun.
And that's where it goes to the Joe and Troy thing. It's very complicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's egos, there's mic time,
Right.
There's the whole like, am I the star? Are you the star?
Yeah,
Who's the
right.
star here? And that's
Who's
just,
the first name on the ticker? Yeah,
and
right.
that's buried in every telecast. And what we may not think about it, what we think about is the way they talk to each other on the air. And sometimes it doesn't quite gel yet.
Yeah. One last thing before I let you go, Brian, because I love talking about this. Coach Prime. He is a character. I mean,
I've heard about him.
Yeah,
He's having a big year, I think.
Big year. 60 Minutes last night. There was a great moment on 60 Minutes. They asked Coach Prime, they said, do you fly fish, right? Something that people in Colorado love to do. He said, I fish. And I'm fly while I'm doing it. So I guess I do fly fish. And I think that really sums up who he is and what his persona is right now in Colorado. He is taking the nation by storm. How have you kind of, digested all this media coverage?
First of all, how much did you like the 60 Minutes lineup where it was Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine?
Right.
And then Coach Prime.
Yeah, I mean, our two leaders.
two visions of leadership in 2023. I'm amazed at it because, like last week on ESPN, he was giving sunglasses to Stephen A. on First Take.
Absolutely.
And then the McAfee show up and he was giving sunglasses to Pat McAfee. We're just doing the same bit.
And selling
over and over.
$1.2 million worth of sunglasses, right? I mean,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's totally unbelievable. And it's just amazing because it has a little something for everybody. If you don't know anything about football, you're like, look at all the celebrities on the sideline. Look at Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
And we don't see getting around to
Don't see
things
him
like
often.
this that much. Michael Irvin's here for some reason.
Yeah,
week after
Cameron, Master P,
everybody's
Offset,
here.
yeah.
And then you got the showbiz part of it. You got the college football resurrecting a program in Colorado. It wasn't really that great since the 90s part of it. And then you've just got this thing of it's just content. Everything's interesting. The press conference is interesting. Talking to the reporter after the first half or right at the end of the game, that's interesting. Him on the sidelines is interesting. The thing about his sons is interesting. Him on First Take is interesting. Him on game day, it's feeding everybody. Everybody's like, oh, look at this. I'm getting in on this, so I'm going to get, some more attention to me too.
And he's done a great job of playing the hits for what college football fans want to hear. He knows He knows how to say daggone ball, and we're going to play tough, and
junk.
Right. He has all these sayings, and you're like, this is like Bobby Bowden, but a new spin on it. And it's incredible. Shout out to Coach Prime. It's been great to watch. Shout out to you, Bryan Curtis. Go check out all of your amazing work, especially on the Press Box, my favorite podcast. Go check it out now. Thanks for coming on the show, Bryan.
Thank you, Tate Frazier. Always a pleasure to be here.
All right, there you have it for another edition of Through the Ringer. Thanks to Cousin Sal and Bryan Curtis for coming into the studio. This has been a great time. And in case you missed it, we have Through the Ringer coming back on Friday. Nora is back in the building. We will be doing this Tuesdays and Fridays throughout the season. We'll see you on Friday.